intelligently written and exciting deep dive into the Romulan Star Empire, Face of the Enemy would not only give us a lot more, much requested background information on this longtime Federation foe, but also show off Marina Sirtis's acting abilities. Face of the Enemy premiered a little over halfway through Season 6 of Star Trek The Next Generation. With a story by Renee Echeverria and the teleplay written by Naren Shankar, Face of the Enemy would see beloved Counselor Troi kidnapped by Romulan dissidents to assume the role of a Tal Shiar operative in order to secure safe transport for high-ranking Romulan defectors to the United Federation of Planets. Renee Echeverria is certainly no stranger to Star Trek. He was the story editor for Star Trek The Next Generation's 6th and 7th season, along with writing or coming up with the story for about 41 episodes of TNG and Deep Space Nine. He wrote episodes such as The Offspring, I, Borg, Ship in a Bottle, A Simple Investigation, After Image, and Covenant. And I think Face of the Enemy shows his true writing talents off perfectly. The dialogue and storyline excellently shows off a side of the Romulan Empire that makes them, in my opinion, appear much more human. By the end of the episode, you almost feel sorry for the Romulan officers having to live under the Tal Shiar's watchful gaze.
How did the Tal Shiar protect the Empire? By dragging him, my father, out of his home in the middle of the night.
Clearly, your father was a traitor. I don't need your devotion, Commander. Just your obedience.
Naren Shankar, who wrote the teleplay for this episode, joined the Star Trek The Next Generation writing team as an intern during the latter half of the 4th season. He wrote 9 episodes for TNG, including the Gambit two-parter, and 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine and Voyager's Season 1 episode Heroes and Demons. He would also serve as TNG's scientific consultant for Season 6, and a story editor for Season 7. He would even go on to contribute to the Star Trek The Next Generation video game, A Final Unity. This episode was directed by Gabrielle Beaumont, who directed 7 episodes of TNG, including Booby Trap and Disaster, along with Deep Space Nine's episode In Purgatory's Shadow and Voyager's episode Blink of an Eye. When the story for Face of the Enemy was pitched, it was originally intended to have Q snap Picard, Data, and Crusher, or Troi, to a Romulan vessel, where the Romulans would see them as fellow kinsmen, but to each other and the audience, they would appear as their normal selves. This idea was quickly rejected, however, but I can't help but wonder if this idea would eventually be recycled into the Deep Space Nine episode Things Past. The script as originally written was very different than the one we ended up seeing on screen. The biggest difference being that it was originally intended to be Dr. Crusher, as opposed to Troi, who would have been kidnapped and forced to play make-believe with the Romulans. This was changed, however, when the writing staff realized that Troi's empathic abilities would serve the story much better than the human doctor could. Another difference in the script was that it wasn't to be high-ranking dissidents that Troi was delivering to the Federation, but instead a new Romulan starship. This was quickly changed, however, to the dissidents, but the episode itself would have been suggesting it was Ambassador Spock himself who was in cold storage, and that Troi had to get him back safely to the Federation, only to reveal at the end of the episode that it was not Ambassador Spock, and the dissidents stating to Picard and crew that Spock had died to save him. Of course, this was also quickly changed, as everyone involved realized that a character so important to Star Trek cannot be killed off screen. Joanna Linville was asked to come back and reprise her role as a Romulan commander from the Star Trek The Original Series episode The Enterprise Incident. But unfortunately, she was not available. Instead, Carolyn Seymour would once again grace us with her excellent acting ability, playing the Romulan commander, a role she was familiar with since she had played one in the Season 2 episode of TNG, Contagion. This episode would also introduce the audience to the Tal Shiar, a secret Romulan police whose job it was to ensure the loyalty of the Romulan people to the Romulan Praetor. The Tal Shiar, since Face of the Enemy, would become a major plot point in so many Star Trek episodes and various series. This episode also marked the debut of Worf's ponytail, and he would retain this ponytail for the rest of the series, throughout Deep Space Nine, and for all 4 Star Trek The Next Generation feature films. Besides an in-depth look into the Romulan soul, we also got an in-depth look into one of their starships. I think the production staff did a very good job of redressing older sets and cobbling together this bridge design. It was effective and served its purpose. However, personally, I really wish they had built a completely different and brand new set. I think one of the biggest problems with Trek set designs is the production team having to reuse other sets to save both time and money. As a result, oftentimes alien ships feel nothing of the sort. They simply feel like a redress of Starfleet's standard bridge designs. I keep thinking back to the TOS episode Balance of Terror. Although the Romulan bridge set was cheap, it certainly felt different than what we were used to seeing as a bridge set. I would have liked them to have designed a larger, but more similar set than the one that they used, expanding on that old style of bridge set and showing the audience how the Romulans had adapted their technology and grown with that technology since TOS. This, however, certainly isn't a slight against the episode at all, for the story and acting make up for any inadequacies with the sets themselves. I'd like to also take a moment right now to discuss Marina Sirtis. Face of the Enemy is a prime example of what an amazing actress she is when given good material to work with. Far too often, Troy's presence seemed like an unnecessary add-on to a scene, as opposed to adding the necessary plot, drama, and deeper understanding of the crew that Troy should have been able to show us. Too often it felt like no one really knew what to do with the character. Well, here, that definitely cannot be said. Troy fits perfectly into this role, and if I might say, shows she has the ability to command and adapt, a skill that is rarely seen in this character.
On this ship, I give the command to fire, Major. You have no right to
This gives me the right!
Counselor.
We're not playing it your way anymore, Navek. I've been kidnapped, surgically altered, put in danger. I've gone along with all your plans. Now you are going to listen to me.
Marina Sirtis is an amazing person in her own right, but the acting she does here is tremendous and outstanding. The way she portrays Troy in every scene simply has the audience on the edge of their seats, following right along in Troy's footsteps as the episode progresses. Because this episode is so good, you might have not noticed or seen or even cared about one thing that makes absolutely no sense at all, and that is, of course, the Universal Translator. The Universal Translator is a great device, but it is something that deserves a bit of scrutiny here. I mean, it's a marvelous invention that allows everyone on board any ship or any planet to understand each other with exacting detail. But this episode kind of pushes that premise a little too far, in my opinion. I mean, what exactly is translating Troy's English or Beta Z language to Romulan Standard? If it's the ship, why isn't there some sort of alert telling someone she's not speaking a native Romulan language? Given the paranoia of the Star Empire, you'd think there would be this sort of information being given to someone on board the Warbird. After all, it would be a great way to deter spies. And if it's a comm device that Troy herself is carrying, the Romulan equivalent to a Starfleet comm badge, shouldn't the ship still pick up her actual language? I mean, how does that even work? As she would be talking in English, but the Romulans would be hearing, well, Romulan Standard, and not both languages at the same time? If you think too much about this, however, I'm positive your head will explode, as it all simply makes no sense whatsoever. Face of the Enemy is certainly an episode I can watch and enjoy time and time again, And if you haven't seen the episode lately, I highly recommend you pop it in and give it a look. It's a fantastic journey into the heart of the enemy, and really, just a little bit of intelligent fun.
Troy is forced to impersonate a Romulan officer.
I've been kidnapped, surgically altered, put in danger.
In a daring mission to save the life of a government defector.
Your only chance to get off this ship alive is to do as I say.
Now, at the risk of being caught, can she escape a showdown with her own crew?
Destroy them.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed this short little trip into the behind the scenes of TNG's Face of the Enemy. What did you think of that episode? What is your favorite episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation? Well, leave me a comment in the section below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help the channel out behind its scenes? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Jolantru.